Good afternoon to you folks. Welcome to NxWorries. This is the eighth episode. It's your boy Michael Codrington, and there are more trades to discuss. Last episode, we focused heavily on some trades that were going on around the NBA and WNBA. The NBA trade deadline is not officially over. Oh, actually, now it is over. It ended today at 3 o'clock, but I was going to say, it's not over till it's over. There's been many years full of many trades that have happened that, the paperwork was getting finalized in the 11th hour, or whatever. And then when the news finally dropped, it was always a Woj bomb, because Woj was our keeper for so many years. But now we have Shams, we have some Chris Haynes bombs. Everyone is dropping bombs. Like everyone is delivering news. I thought it was really funny when Patrick Beverly was delivering his news over the summer, and he was pretty proud of himself because he announced it on his podcast. I also saw he was suspended recently in his on his Tel Aviv team for his public mocking of the coach of the team, which is interesting behavior when he basically said that Israeli basketball wasn't that good. So he's like LeBron over there. I thought that was just funny. I mean, he's averaging 10, 5, and 5. But this episode is not to eviscerate Pat Bev. This is to talk about those trades, to give my official Super Bowl prediction, and to talk about these NFL awards that came out tonight. Next episode, we are going to discuss this UConn and Tennessee women's basketball game because I'm fired up about it. I just finished up watching some of it. Paige Beckers and them got dethroned the same week that Beckers went in the media and they said, long storied history. You have these two schools. How do you feel about it? All you have to say is it feels good to participate and be another chapter. And she said, you know, nowadays it's really more UConn Notre Dame. It's not really UConn Tennessee. Maybe don't say that when the year Tennessee wants to be 10th in the country. Their coach was coaching them while she was pregnant, and then she gave birth, and now she's back. Maybe say that a different year. But I saw that to say next episode we're talking about that game, and we'll talk some more men's college basketball. But let's get into these NBA trades. So, um, I had talked on the last episode about the prospect of trading Jimmy Butler. Okay, Jimmy had allegedly denied a lot of these deals that would have sent him to places that were contenders. And obviously, the Warriors was one of those places. The him for Wiggins, it had a lot of smoke for a long time, but I stand by what I said on the last episode. I really, really like Andrew Wiggins to the Heat. I think the Heat are going to waive PJ Tucker. I saw a quote about how he wanted to return to the Heat. But the fact of the matter is, Unk is pushing 40, and he was literally signing to teams as like the quote unquote LeBron stopper when he was just holding Braun to like 41. Like he can take all of his shoes and he can go sit down and retire. I'm sure he's done well for himself as far as business ventures. I always see PJ Tucker around, so I'm sure he's got plenty of money. Just sit down. He's done. He's done. He keeps getting moved. He's done. The guy's done. Shout out PJ. You know, for all he's done in this league and for carving out a 15, I think 15, 14-year career. So shout out to him. But hang it up, man. Hang it up. It's done. Um, Andrew Wiggins instantly makes the Miami Heat a more competitive basketball team because he's Maple Jordan. I don't think most NBA fans nowadays are just not old enough to remember the whole Maple Jordan thing. And I immediately thought that the trade had so many layers to it because Draymond is somebody that has given his opinion on Jimmy's actions many times on his podcast. And now they're going to be teammates, and they're both guys who are hotheads. So they're inevitably going to kamikaze one another, or they're going to win a championship. There's no if and or but. They're going to kamikaze one another, or they're going to win a championship. I don't think that they can win a championship. Let me be very clear. I think that this is going to have to be Steve Kerr's best coaching job because, in my opinion, Steve Kerr is not the best coach in the world. He's not a top 3. He's not a top 5. He's not a top 7 coach. He's been incredibly successful with what he's been given. But as far as his ability to contribute certain things, I mean, he's got some really good sideline eye balance plays. I'll give him that. I can't take that away from him. He was a champion player. He for a long time he was like 1 or 2 all time in 3-point shooting percentage. That's obviously not the case anymore because of the amount of people who are shooting who become eligible when they hit a certain amount of attempts. But Steve Kerr has his work cut out for him. Steph Curry has his work cut out for him. I think getting rid of Wiggins is good because it opens up the floor for Kuminga, it opens up the floor for Moody. But at the same time, only if they bring defense with them. They have enough offense. If all those guys who they have play offense, they have enough offense. But now the question is, and Buddy Hield, right? Like they have Buddy Hield, so Buddy Hield can play if they want to recreate the DNA or the formula for the 2022 basketball team. Then you have Klay Thompson in that Buddy Hield role, right? And Jimmy Butler is the elevated Wiggins role. And, people just kind of fall into place like dominoes if that's what they're trying to do as a team. I'm not really sure because most of me understands that from the Warriors' perspective that this is a luxury tax kind of move. They get 19 million under, and I mean, you probably want to pay somebody soon, right? Like if it's, I don't know if it's going to be a free agent or if it's going to be an extension for one of the guys you already have. Like Pods, you can sign Pods to a short-term extension, kind of like the Lakers did with Austin Reeves. You sign him to like a shorter term extension. And that way you don't have to pay him what he would eventually be worth if he tops out at the high end of what you're projecting him to be, if that makes sense. So it's interesting to see what happens with Golden State with Jimmy, how many games he lasts over there, how many games him and Draymond can coexist over there. It'll be very interesting to see. The Miami Heat instantly get better, like I said. Maple Jordan. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say about the layers to the trade is that Maple Jordan has had to follow in these footsteps of LeBron James for parts of his career, right? Like people said he was the Canadian LeBron James. Many people forget that because he's carved out a great career for himself. He became an all damn near an all-world player. Like he became that during the run that they had to the championship. He was dunking on people, jumping out the gym. He was shooting insane splits. He was doing the Penny Hardaway move at the elbow. Like he was very in tune with being good at basketball for that season, and then like the kind of the season before and the season after. So that might go down as his best stretch, but at the same time, people always saw how good he was in different situations. He just never fully capitalized. And so from the whole fiasco that happened around him and the LeBron replacement stuff to then now having to go play for another franchise that LeBron James played for, I feel for Mr. Wiggins. I feel like that's just whack. But luckily for him, people have a short memory. So again, people forget all that Nipple Jordan stuff and most of the LeBron comps. I really hope that he can thrive there. Another guy that I really hope can thrive is Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is being sent to the Raptors, the Toronto Raptors, which is yet another team that has a makeup similar to all the other teams he's been on. Every team that Brandon Ingram has been on has been talented. It has been loaded, but it's been full of guys who don't play in sync. When he was on the Lakers, the young Lakers, before they traded away all their guys for Anthony Davis, right? They had a little bit of time where LeBron, played with them, sure, but for the most part, it was like that season before Brown got there and he saw the potential or whatever. You got him, you got Zoe, you got Josh Hart, you got I mean, that was a weird team. Kuzma, like all these guys who want to touch the ball, but at the end of the day, not enough defense, right? And not enough consistent shooting, not enough late game free throw making, the kind of stuff that loses you basketball games. So Ingram's just not going to be able to stay on those Lakers. So then he becomes the face of the Pelicans, presumably. And then you hear all this stuff in ownership about him not taking the game very serious, the state that he's showing up to games where he's just watching, right? The message that sends. If any of those big kind of 10 players in the NBA are out and you see them on the bench, it sends a clear message. If Joel Embiid is out and he's on the bench, feet up, eating a Chick-fil-A sandwich, that shows like I don't care. But if he's on the bench, he looks pretty locked into the game. He's got like a really regular fit on. Like, yeah, that communicates to everyone, okay, like I'm here and I'm surveying for when I come back. I'm serious about coming back. I'm serious about the team and so on and so on and so on. So the message that you send as the quote unquote face is always important. I think that BI just wasn't ready to be the face. If you're the Pelicans, you're super excited about that AD deal because AD was in this tweener position where some people coveted him as a top 5 guy, and some people saw him as a top 20 guy who's really good at defense. When it was becoming very apparent that he was hooping. He had some injury concerns with the Pelicans. So there was some of that street clothes talk even before he was given that unfair name by Charles Barkley. So to get players like Josh Hart, you see what he's doing for the Knicks, Lonzo Ball before the knee construction, and they helped fix his jumper. You saw what he was doing that very last season before he blew out his knee. And then BI, who plays like Kevin Durant, very similar body type. He floats around. He doesn't really, you know, run faster than anybody or jump higher than anybody. He plays with that lankiness. He understands his body, and that's very KD of him, very Kevin Durant of him, very Kia Jackson of him. And so Brandon Ingram to the Raptors can look really good. Like Emmanuel quickly is going to get you the ball in places that you can play basketball. You guys don't have as distractions. You have Scotty Barnes still on the team who they covet as their franchise face. So if being the face is still too much for Ingram, he can just be the two guy and just get tons of buckets consistently. He's not going to have a lot of eyes on him because he's in Canada, right? Even though that they practice in like Miami or whatever for most of the time, he's going to be in Canada. I think that's a good move for the Raptors. I want BI to be successful. I'm a big BI fan. A couple other trades that caught my eye. This DeAndre Hunter for Karis LeVert trade. Ooh, DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs is, in my opinion, a direct move to combat the um the Hawks. Like you're doing business with the team that you're probably going to play in the playoffs. I see there's four clear teams in the Eastern Conference being the Heat, the Hawks, the Bucks, and the Heat, the Hawks, the Bucks, and the Cavaliers. And so they're going to play any collection of those guys, and they just want to be able to match them. You want to have enough bullets in the chamber. That's really what all of this is about. Trading Hunter for LeVert is just about having more bullets in the chamber. Karis LeVert is a traffic cone on defense. I love that guy, man. He's a Michigan guy. I love Karis LeVert. I really do. But he's a traffic cone on defense. He's like the sixth man that you want, but the six-man bar has been set to a place where efficiency matters as well. So he's not the most efficient. He doesn't have the best shot selection. And so those are the things that play into trading a player like that for someone like DeAndre Hunter who plays inside of the mold of the game. DeAndre Hunter reminds me a lot of OG Anunoby. He's a champion player and he plays basketball the smoothest way you can play it, like the lowest maintenance way that somebody can exist on the basketball court is someone who's 6'7", 6'8". He doesn't need the basketball. He plays good defense. He moves his feet. He runs up and down. He's going to be not a problem for your team because he played for UVA under the old guard of college basketball, under Tony Bennett. So he's not going to be a guy that gets in the tabloids for anything. He's going to contribute winning to the team. So I think this was like one of those trades where you go from a B player to a B plus, A minus player. And it's a subtle thing that can hopefully help them go a long way. But they're definitely gearing up for those three teams. And they're gearing up for probably OKC, who they see as who's going to go to the finals from the West. In my opinion, it's OKC's to lose. Chet Holmgren just got cleared, and these guys are 40-9. They play ridiculously good basketball. They have more length than anybody. They have more depth than anybody. This is probably the year for them because you're going to have to start paying some of these dudes like Aaron Wiggins. How about 41-14 from Aaron Wiggins a couple of nights ago? Seventh or eighth guy on the team. Terrence Mann, Brooklyn God, our high school player, Terrence Mann, I got the pleasure of seeing him play as a high school player. And, it was just one of those reminders that he's in a different stratosphere than the rest of us. He was traded in a package. Himself and Bones Highland were traded in a package for Bogdan Bogdanovic from the Hawks. So then another one of the Hawks unloading. The Hawks are kind of doing an interesting thing here where like they're unloading, but also just shifting pieces around. Trae Young is going toe to toe with anybody and everybody. He's massively disrespected. I'm not sure what it is, to be fully honest. In sports, people don't like the look of certain people, and you can chalk that up to whatever it is. Don't get me wrong. Like all things matter in that, but like sometimes it's the look of them. People will literally say, I don't like the way this person looks, or, they like some people don't like Pat Mahomes because of how he looks. And that's not to say it's because he's black. They literally are like, oh my God, I don't like the way this person looks, and it's sometimes it's psychological. Like you are already a part of the opposing fan base. So you have to create a reason not to like them, XYZ, XYZ. It's a real deal thing. And so I think that A lot of people don't like Trae Young because of the way that he looks. And when he shoots dice, imaginary dice on your logo, when he does the ice tray celebration, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth as a fan because you're like, bro, he's doing this to my team. Like it's just another day for him. And what bothers me about him as someone who roots against him is like he's got that childlike love for basketball. And I'm like, man, like it's like he's playing at the park. That's what bothers me. And that's Curry like, all those Curry comparisons didn't really do him any justice at the beginning of his career. But now you look at him and then you look at his career versus the beginning of Steph's career, and you look at his career and where it's headed, and you look at the numbers he's putting up, and you look at the fact that since he's come into the NBA, he's had one season where he's had less than 9 assists a game. Every other season, it's like 10, 11, 10, 11, 12. So, yeah, he's doing what Steph is doing. He's making it as efficient as he can now. Uh, as far as the range, he has that checked off. As far as the attention he commands from defenses, he has that checked off. And as far as the stats, he has that checked off by a mile. So the only thing that's left to validate Mr. Trae Young is some victory in the playoffs other than that time that they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, which doesn't get talked about enough either. Like you have to give him respect for that. He was the engine of that team. They've changed that roster a lot, so it's not like they're married to that roster. So he's had a lot of different, he's had different running mates, and he's played well with them. You know, he hasn't caused issues. He seems like a win first guy, and he's doing this all at 6'6.5". Got to tip your cap to Trae Young. I think the Hawks are in a solid position to contend. Again, they're in that those top four seeds in the Eastern Conference. Moving on to a couple of young teams that are just kind of loading up. So the my Hornets ended up getting guys like Yusuf Nurkic and Cam Reddish through the various deals, obviously unloading Mark Williams to the Lakers. Mark Williams was eventually going to command a lot of salary because of the game that he plays. He reminds me of a supercharged DeAndre Ayton. Ayton has way more finesse. He doesn't get credit for his post work and all that. Maybe he does get credit, but again, when you're that number one pick, people are going to judge you differently. But Ayton and Williams, they favor each other as far as their game stylistically, in my opinion. But Mark Williams is so much more athletic. He jumps out the gym. He has a 9'9" uh wingspan, I believe, or standing reach. It's one of the two. Either one is absurd to imagine for even despite the fact that the guy is 7 feet 7'2". I mean, Mark Williams can really drastically change the Lakers team this year, but this year they have a ceiling, in my opinion. Luka is great, Brown is great, all these guys are great, but there's not enough guys. They need to sign a wing. There's not a lot of wings left on the buyout market who will be comparable. The best guy you can sign right now is probably Lonnie Walker Jr. or the fourth, whatever he is. Lonnie Walker is probably the best guy that you can sign right now. And even then, banking on the fact that he's going to do exactly what he did the last time y'all had him in the playoffs is not a risk that I'd be willing to take. So they don't have enough guys. I don't understand getting rid of Connect to do this because they also have Dalton Connect now. The Hornets do. I don't understand getting rid of Connect to do this because the Hornets already have Seth Curry and they have enough guys on their team who shoot threes. Like you have a player in Connect who you drafted in the first round. You claimed he was a steal. You have JJ Redick, one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time, coaching him. You have LeBron James getting him the ball in his shot pocket. Yes, he has had games where he's been cold, where he has not been very good on defense. He's a rookie in the NBA. Max Christie was in his third year. It's 2.5 years, really. That's hard for me to justify that trade. I see Christie having back-to-back 15 and 9 games in his first two games for the Mavericks, and I'm finding it harder and harder to justify these series of trades for the Lakers. But getting rid of Connect doesn't sit right with me. I understand having to get that big, and Mark Williams is the kind of big that you want to get, but that might have been just the cherry on top for the Hornets to be like, oh yeah, we'll take it, because they wanted to get rid of him anyway. They didn't like his injury history. Remember, he missed like an entire year when he first got into the league, right? The Bulls got a bunch of players through trade. They get rid of Zach LaVine, but they get guys like Zach Collins and Trey Jones, filler guys that you can see working around Lonzo and some of the other guys they have. But man, they don't have a lot. The Bulls don't have a lot. They just don't have a lot, man. That's the NBA. And they get my blood pressure up, but that's the NBA. All right. Let's do the song of the day. Song of the day, song of the day, song of the day. What's gonna be the tunes? What's gonna be the tunes? You know what? Anderson Pack. And this is and I promise you I'm gonna switch it up, guys, because I'm aware of the pattern of the songs that I've been picking. But that's why we do so many of these. Anderson Paak and Knowledge made an album in 2015, No Worries. And every time I revisit that album, I'm like, this has to win a Grammy. I'm not sure if it won a Grammy. I know Pac just won a Grammy for the album he just made, which was really good too. But man, side piece on that album and Another Time. Them two songs on uh Yes Lord, that's the album name that they have. Them two songs on there. Yeah, man, just turn that on. You can do anything with that. Clean the house, record a podcast, watch the Super Bowl. Good segue, Mike. Super Bowl. Let's get this official prediction out the way. So I was watching Gruden like everyone has. Gruden's been making his way back into the public eye, and he talked about Mahomes being 7-0 versus Vic Fangio. I don't think we should make this too much of a Mahomes. Like, I don't think we should make this too much of a this guy versus that guy, this quarterback versus that coordinator. I think this is gonna take everybody because it's just too close. The Eagles have more talent, but the Chiefs are coached to do what they do so well and militant. Like, they also have that addedness of, okay, this is our third time. Like, the storyline, all the story matters. So all of them feel that weight. There's many guys, there's an entire two sets of draft classes on the Chiefs who know nothing other than success. And they don't want to stray from that. And they're used to winning and producing in these big moments. So I think it's going to take every single body on every side of the ball doing everything that's required of them. But if I had to make a prediction, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles have too much offensively, and that special teams is probably going to make a difference in this game. So I think Cooper DeJean gets a big return off a punt return or something like that. Kind of opens up the game. I'll take the Eagles in this game. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles by a score of 29-28. Okay. I know that was a fast prediction, but I just wanted to get it out the way. We've been talking about this game for a long time, but I just want to see it played. I don't make bets. I like to enjoy the Super Bowl ads. I'm a regular spectator. So I just want to see the game played. I want to see Dots. He says a 13-minute set for halftime. The way that people were acting for Beyonce when it was the Beyonce Bowl, the Super Bowl is the Dot Bowl. And I'm gonna be front and center. I've been a Kendrick Lamar fan since I've been like 11. I'm gonna be front and center. I don't care what y'all think at home. I'm going to be front and center for Mr. Lamar. NFL awards. We're going to end with this one because, it's funny. It's their awards, right? Like, they're supposed to be subjective. They're not going to be objective. They're awards. So that means that there's a small group of people who decided on this, even though the small group of people is supposed to, in theory, represent the thoughts or the ideas of a larger groups of people. That's usually not the case. The smaller group of people is normally going to do what they want to do. That being said, all right, let's talk about Josh Allen winning his first Most Valuable Player award. I want to be more upset at this. I'm not really upset at this. And people might watch this and think I am. I'm not upset at this at all. Josh Allen is deserving, but he's deserving just as much as Joe Burrow is deserving, just as much as Saquon is deserving. Lamar Jackson is the MVP, and we can let the whatever happened in the playoffs, deter from what happened during the regular season. But the fact remains that he is the most valuable player. And in my opinion, when you look at two guys who have almost identical stats competing for the same award, you have to look at what differentiates one from the other in terms of head-to-head matchups. In their head-to-head matchup, Lamar Jackson did dominate the Bills. I think all of that speaks for itself. I just do. That being said, these are a set of goalposts, and I'm just gonna do this. You put two and two together at home, okay? Because I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, right? What's the justification like? If I heard a competent case, and I have heard some, right? A competent case put together for all these guys, and then one of them won, that would be one thing. But some of the things that people were saying about the justification for why Mr. Allen should win they did not make sense as far as being a football fan and loving football. One person who is slowly catapulting out of the sky of public favor because of his opinions on TV and his inability to be unbiased is Tony Romo. Tony Romo clearly loves Josh Allen. He clearly loves Patrick Mahomes. He talks about them in these glowing ways like they're his favorite child. And you're a commentator. You have to understand that the integrity of the league rests on your ability to sell it to people who are watching. And so that's why Greg Olsen is the best in the business, in my opinion. Greg Olsen is unheralded as the best commentator who's currently out commentating on games because Olsen has this ability to make you see the phenomenal in a backup quarterback coming into the game, the same way that you can see the phenomenal in Tom Brady going down to lead a game-winning drive. Whereas Tony Romo waits for his opportunities to prop up his guys, and then he says stuff on TV like we should give the MVP to one guy over the other guy because the first guy won it twice already. That's not justification, and it damages the integrity of the league. Allen then wins this MVP by a vote of 27-23. So it damages the integrity of the vote because now you have to ask, like, was it that close because it should have been that close, which I believe it should have, or is it that close because some of these people might have been influenced by a comment like that? Um, one of my kids, we talk sports all the time. One of my kids was just telling me about how I didn't give Burrow enough love, and I wholeheartedly agree. His stat line was disgusting. It was so good. And so I don't think 27-23 is even fair because there's no way all 50 of those votes went to those top two guys, him and Jackson. Joe Burrow deserves some votes. Saquon deserves some votes. What I am really happy to see is Surtain winning Defensive Player of the Year because I said on here that they wouldn't give it to him. They gave it to a man who was more than deserving, who was locking down sides of the field at will. And Patrick Surtain is exactly what you want in a cornerback. So I'm happy for Pat Surtain for winning that. Shout out to Josh Allen for winning his first MVP. But like I said, you would like to see it done under a different circumstance. I'm happy for the guy as a person. And because I think that in a league full of accolades and in a league that's incentive based on your contract, sometimes it's important to win awards. So it's good that he won this award. But I don't want to see anyone say, well, he has this one MVP, so now he's better than somebody else. Because that's just lazy. I think you should focus on the eye test and focus on the command of the team and the command of the game of football. And if you think about all of those things, then Josh Allen is a top 3 quarterback. And just think about those things. Don't make it about stuff that it's not to fit to I don't want to use that word, but to don't make it about stuff that it's not. So WMVP. But shout out to Allen, first MVP, probably not the last. Big time player in the NFL. Kevin O'Connell receives Coach of the Year. I have mixed feelings about this. I think Dan Quinn did a better job when you consider what he had to do top to bottom. New ownership, new coaches. You're the new coach, new quarterback. He's a rookie. All the stuff he had to do. I think Dan Quinn over KOC. I like KOC, but I think that the leaps that a lot of his defensive players took is overstated because he's the coach, so he gets all the credit because it's like this is the record, so the coach did this. Whereas what was the reality for Minnesota is their defense was historically dominant, and so it took the other team's offense out of a lot of games enough so that their offense could just do what they did, kind of pressureless. And for the first 16 weeks of the season, Sam Darnold looked like a legitimate MVP prospect. But you also have to think about the fact that he's throwing to 2 Biletnikoff winners. I don't think that gets talked about enough. Darnold looked good. Don't get me wrong. O'Connell coached well for sure. But you got 2 Biletnikoff guys lining up. Hey, throw me the ball. I would also have been happy with Dan Campbell winning that award because when you look at the way that the Lions lost Aiden Hutchinson after 5 games, the way that they lost players all up and down their team, and they just, Malcolm Rodriguez really early, and guys just kind of stepped in and did what they had to do up until they were slayed by Jaden Daniels, who did win Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. he made me eat my words about Brock Bowers. I was on the Brock train. I thought that what Brock was doing was really nice. I will give Jaden the edge, just like the rest of them did. It was very deserved. He's a hell of a player. But final spiel here is actually on Mr. Burrow winning comeback player of the year. I think we might have lost sight of what this award should be for a little bit. I think that the league was conspiring to give Joe Burrow an award because they want the faces of the league to be cycled in a lot. So people see them on the stage, they see them doing stuff, and then they kind of get their names etched into their homes and now their household names because he should have been like I don't know if he was. He should have been like third in MVP voting. So comeback player of the year is not really suitable. That's like when somebody who's already really good has a great year and the NBA gives them most improved. Nothing bothers me more than that because what is most improved? Like we're expecting this or this was kind of the trajectory. You know what I'm saying? So Joe Burrow did come back from an injury, but I think that last year you set a bad or you established or reestablished this insane. It's this hard to follow precedent when Joe Flacco wins over Damar Hamlin. If somebody in my opinion, comeback player of the year is somebody who's experienced hardships that are, as far as the public knowledge, um, great enough and tumultuous enough that when we see the way that you're playing now, we're like, oh yeah. So for honestly, comeback player of the year should have been David Njoku. You can't compete with his story of getting burned like that, but you saw the way he's come back and he's made his mark. And it's not about having 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. It's about the way that they're able to play and tough it out. Like if the first game Njoku was back, I think he caught a touchdown. He had a calm game. It was like 3 or 4 catches, like 40 yards and a tud. But the fact that he's out there sweating, warming up, blocking dudes with half of his body burned to a crisp is like that. If that's not a comeback player of the year to get back on the field after that and play, then I don't know what is. So Damar Hamlin losing to Flacco was strange, but now Burrow winning this year, I just feel like this is an award that we should reevaluate as a league and just give out something else. Walter Payton Man of the Year went to Eric Armstead, great dude. Follow him on TikTok. He's a cool guy. I'm trying to think. Oh, Defensive Rookie of the Year went to Jared Verse, young defensive lineman from Florida State, playing in Los Angeles next to his buddy from Florida State, Fisk, who was also up for the award. Whew, they better hope Sean McVay doesn't get cooking again because they missed out this year. They played the Eagles within 6 points, and you saw what the Eagles have been doing, and you might see what the Eagles do this Sunday. The Rams played the Eagles within 6 points. Nobody at home forget that. I made a lot of comments on here about Ryan Day and his potential job security before the college football playoff. It has been announced that Ryan Day, after winning the national championship with a $22 million roster, has signed a contract extension to make him the second highest paid coach in college football. I hope he enjoys that money. Shout out to Coach Day. That's all I have for y'all today. This is episode 8 Ocho of In the AM with MC.